Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, represented by the Convention on Business Integrity, hosted a roundtable session on service delivery at the Nigerian ports in Lagos as part of the initiatives of the Business Action Against Corruption. The event, which brought together stakeholders in the maritime sector, business space, and government officials, focused on the theme towards standard operating procedures that works in Nigeria's seaports and terminals. Mr. Soji Apampa, CEO of Convention on Business Integrity, in his opening remarks, gave insight into the essence of the event.
We had, as the Convention on Business Integrity, carried out a study last year among ship captains, and we found that they still complain that there are high levels of demands for illicit payments to be made by them. They made that allegation. They also alleged that the standard operating procedures are not always followed. For example, that when officials board a vessel, they shouldn't spend more than 90 minutes aboard the vessel. They say that is the exception rather than the rule. They also tell us that the officials, although more than 50% of the time they board together, but very often the officials board individually. So even that operating procedure is not totally followed. Today we'll be discussing some of these challenges and a few more, but I would like us to juxtapose the feedback from the international visiting captains and what port users in Nigeria had to say, because it's not the same view.
The head of Collective Action and Partnerships, EMEA, Mr. Vivek Menon, informed stakeholders on the mandate of the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network activities.
There are new laws that have come in, which also makes our work even more stringent in how we do when we interact with ports, which of course led to initiatives like MACN, the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, which was formed in 2011. Today we are a membership of 123 companies, ranging from ship owners, cargo owners, and port agencies working in different countries. So through these years and through our work in collaboration with our external stakeholders, local partners, port authorities, and governments, we have actually successfully resulted in reducing such demands in various countries, including in Nigeria. The premises of this work, together with our local partners, is to raise the awareness of the brilliant work that is being done by the various authorities together with local stakeholders. And that is the reason why MACN, together with our local partners, is trying to work towards this mission. And through the collective action, what we aim to do is to create a more simpler, a more efficient operating environment which benefits everyone, not just old captains like me who come to different ports, but definitely to the local and national governments, where their ports become better places to do business and therefore make it more attractive for the maritime industry. Also to the businesses who are reducing the instances of vessels being kept in port, so they can constantly deliver to all our customers and consumers in time, always in time.
Dr. Yinka Akonde from the University of Ibadan presented key findings from the recent survey report carried out on Nigerian ports by the Convention on Business Integrity.
If all hands can be on deck, if we can intervene, the Nigerian port has strong potentials to drive it. Though the ports are underperforming at the moment, according to our research, in fact, scaling down are also there. Even sometimes underperforming, not performing more than 30 to 40% capacity level, we can move to 100% in terms of capacity. But all stakeholders must come together and appreciate the fact that there is a problem. And this problem, these challenges, are not going to lay on somebody's table. We must all take these problems and run with them and move this country and these ports forward. But multi-stakeholder approach is very important. It's part of our recommendation. And when I heard about this meeting, I congratulate everybody that this is one way going forward. And there must be more empowerment to law enforcement officers, and also port users must be given voice. I want to emphasize this. Port users, a lot of our respondents and discussants want voice. To be able, though there are grievance mechanisms they are aware of, there are also those that are not so formal, but some of them are so afraid of even complaining. There are some we spoke to, they say, who will complain? People rather play by the rule set by these discretionary officers. Because if you complain, you will be punished for it, whether directly or indirectly. If you look at some of these narratives at the back of the report, you will find it there. And I think that's very important.
Panelists discussed the need for reforms and transparency in the ports and terminals, alongside addressing the issue of congestion and infrastructure in the country.
The fundamental of every country is about its ability to do trade. The ability to earn effect is ability to do trade. If 80% of all your trade activities comes through your port, why are we treating port as a separate issue? It is an economic issue. It is every plan that we all have, all these things you see here, all come through the seaport. It's the most important indicator for the progress of the economy. So for those of us in the private sector who look at our ports and look at your distinguished gentlemen and ladies here who are talking, it's not about you, it's about us. It is about the country. And as such, when we say we are talking solutions, okay, so let us conclude and have an idea of the kind of port service we want. And so we can therefore go with what ICPC is telling us, that we make incremental progress. But you will not be making progress if you are making what you call start and stop. So episodic bouts of brilliance every now and then is not the solution. So what we need to do here is to cut the chase and understand that we have the most inefficient port service. But the inefficiency is costing this nation, but it's costing also individuals and lives. Families who could not take their kids or their sick mother or their sick daughter rushing to hospital, stuck on that traffic for hours, there's a cost to it. It's called human life. So there's a larger issue. It's not just the business side, it's the whole quantum. This nation's economy is tied to us resolving that port system. Thank you.
The will is there politically when we talk about government and government stance on anti-corruption and government stance on trying to get our economy back on track. The issue would be around the vision. As he said earlier, do we have a clear idea of where we should be going? Because that is primary. If we cannot articulate properly where we need to be, and then we cannot articulate how we will get there. Who will facilitate our getting there? What do we have to put in place to get us there? If the vision is faulty, then the whole thing around it will be faulty. So it's in terms of how competent our vision building or envisioning, how competent that process is. So that is what we need to. Is it a question of lack of capacity, a lack of creativity, lack of the intellectual processes that should go into thinking for a country, say 50 years ahead of now? Because that's an issue. We don't seem to have very long-range plans or envisioning that will go beyond present generation for Nigeria. We hardly seem to envision beyond a few years, which is not good enough in present day and age.
It featured a Q&A session, which was an opportunity for stakeholders and key personalities in the security formation to speak on ease of doing business and collaboration to tackle corrupt practices at the ports.
Please let me establish that cargo examination is a function of risk management. It is what you put in the system that comes out. And madam, sorry, it is not because agents deliberately put it. It is because your documentation process triggers a particular risk level for your cargo. Unfortunately, the supply chain integrity in this part of the world is so poor that our risk level will always be triggered red. And we don't have apologies for that, because it is what you give that you get out. It is garbage in, garbage out. The day our declarations are positive, tend towards superior integrity, we will tend towards green lane. Even when you say it, at the airport, madam, when Nigerians come back, if you travel abroad, there is a green lane, there is a red lane, and there's a blue lane. Here in Nigerian airports, almost every lane is what? Red. I wonder how many Nigerians will come back from the port and say nothing to declare. That is where the challenge lies. Our supply chain integrity in this country is poor. And so long as people don't make correct declarations, we will continue to examine those cargo. And there has been this argument, oh, we need to get scanners at the port. Please, yes, we need scanners at the port to ease the number of times spent examining cargo. But that does not mean that scanners will eliminate fraud from cargo examination. I think we have to accept this as standards that we must adopt as a country. If I examine particular cargo and I find that the density inside that container is at variance with what has been declared or what I was expecting, I will still examine that cargo physically. That even makes it a double check. So the first thing we are going to address here is to advise stakeholders, traders, to adopt integrity in their declarations. And once you do that, we may not even have to examine at all. What do? We do what we call authorized economic operator procedure. In that case, you declare a particular cargo in China. We get intelligence that this cargo has been declared as 100 packages of bottled water. It gets into Nigeria. We examine that container. It is 100 packages of bottled water. We do that with you 3-4 times. Of course, when next you bring cargo, I don't have to examine your cargo. What is it about our policies that become barrier to trade? If, for instance, you say there is an auto policy, why should somebody want to smuggle in his cars through the border? Why should customs want to go into the town to arrest vehicles? If, for instance, you have a particular vehicle that the duty is so high, why should somebody want not to pay that duty? This is policy matter. Customs don't address policies. We only implement them.
Mr. Soji Apampa, Mr. Dera Nachi, Mr. Vivek Menon, and Mr. Abdullahi G. Oruma give further insight on how the Nigerian seaport can be well structured and effective.
I think the government has already gone far, because what they should do is what they have done, which is to identify where the corruption risks are. Based on the corruption risks, they've identified what needs to happen, and they've now reduced that to standard operating procedures. And in those standard operating procedures, the challenge is that all of those who operate at the ports don't know these operating procedures are there and don't fully utilize these operating procedures. So what we need to do together with the government is to improve the level of awareness and the level of compliance with these, especially with ensuring that we also get consequences for those who flout the operating procedures.
Good 18, all the federal agencies present here attest to the fact that there are lacunas. There are void spaces for our operations, and people take responsibilities. So I'm happy from here, each and every agency will go back, meet the various bosses, discuss these resolutions here. I think the summary of our discussions here talk about communication, compliance, and finally a communique. Now, communication means we should be abreast with all the proceedings going on in the airport, in the seaports. Vis-a-vis, maybe you want to lay complaints, where do you go to? Like the port PSSSP is a good platform for you to lay your complaints. So from here, we'll tell our various heads to liaise with all the ports, Tinkan Island, Port Apapa Port, so that if there is anything, we'll go there and make our complaint. Then in terms of compliance, the compliance, to be fair, is improving, but we have not got there. So these are some of the takeaways.
Compared to other ports, from my experience, I would say that there is a lot of work to be done in terms of infrastructure to actually how the whole processes are handled in the ports of Nigeria. So there is a lot of room of improvement, but also not just improvement, it gives you an advantage to take the level much higher than the other ports that are doing well today. So the learnings from there can be taken to a different level, and then you can present yourself as a leader in the future, perhaps to other following countries.
You can't cut your nose to spite your face. So what we're going to do is to improve on available facilities, and then as much as possible, try to automate some of the processes, and then improve so much again on the human capacity, because that's basically what we'll do. But then there are also plans to build other ports. I'm a fan of that, but then I'm not saying we should abandon the present port. What we are going to do is to improve on the infrastructure in the present port, improve and automate our business processes, reduce and, if possible, eliminate those areas that we think are not necessary. That way, we will achieve optimally service delivery in the ports.
I think before we start building new ports, we've got Lagos Ports complex, but we really need to improve the eastern ports as well. If, as one of the participants mentioned, if Calabar Port is working, if Onne is working, if Warri is working, Port Harcourt is working fully, then really the bottleneck and the gridlock we're having in Lagos will be redistributed, and we will get greater efficiency. So it's not just about building new ports or building new infrastructure. It's about doing the best with what we already have and reducing the operational bottlenecks caused by corruption to make things more effective and efficient.
From the CBI Maritime Roundtable session, it is clear that public and private sector partnership will be adopting the standard operating procedures with zero tolerance for corrupt practices in the seaports and terminals that can enable a sustainable business environment for Nigeria.